Good evening from Washington, D.C., and thank you for joining us for News from a Catholic Perspective. I'm Wyatt Goolsby. Lauren Ashburn is on assignment. The Supreme Court rules in favor of a Colorado baker who wouldn't create a cake for a gay wedding reception. But the 7-2 ruling doesn't answer the question of whether a business can invoke religious objections to refuse service to gays and lesbians. Correspondent Jason Calvi spoke to both sides and joins us from the Supreme Court. Good evening, Jason.
Good evening, Wyatt. The decision is limited to the case of Jack Phillips, who is a Christian. Now, the High Court says he suffered anti-religious bias at the hands of the Colorado Civil Rights Commission. That panel said Phillips discriminated against a gay couple, but in the Supreme Court's view, Colorado violated his First Amendment rights. Jack Phillips owns Masterpiece Cake Shop in the suburbs of Denver. In 2012, he told Charlie Craig and Dave Mullins he couldn't create a cake for their wedding reception. I spoke to Phillips in December, the day the High Court heard oral arguments.
And I just hope now that the justices will look at this case and allow creative professionals like myself to create freely according to their conscience. And that nobody else has to go through what my family and I have gone through for the last 5 years.
Phillips' lawyer is calling the ruling a complete victory.
Jack's very grateful that the Supreme Court has protected his religious freedom. He was willing to serve all people, just not all messages was he willing to create. So the fact that the court said religious freedom is important and needs to be in the balance, that's a really important principle.
In his majority opinion, Justice Anthony Kennedy writes that the treatment by Colorado's Civil Rights Commission has some elements of a clear and impermissible hostility towards sincere religious beliefs. But he also says the issue must await further elaboration. Gay rights groups are emphasizing that.
This decision only applies to this particular baker. In no way did the Supreme Court challenge the application of non-discrimination laws, including non-discrimination laws that cover LGBTQ people.
Appeals in similar cases are pending, including one at the Supreme Court from a florist who didn't want to provide flowers for a same-sex wedding. The Supreme Court could decide this month whether to pick up that case. The question tonight is still unanswered. Does the First Amendment allow business owners to say no to working same-sex weddings? Wyatt?
Okay, Jason, so Justices Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Sonia Sotomayor were the two that did not agree with the majority opinion. So did the court give any indication about future cases?
Justice Kennedy says the courts cannot disrespect sincere religious beliefs, but he says gay people should not suffer indignities when seeking services in an open market. Now, Jack Phillips' lawyers tell me today's ruling does move the needle because the court says religious values need to be taken seriously.
Jason Calvi reporting from the Supreme Court. Thanks, Jason.